Welcome back, everyone. Today, I'm just going to give my thoughts and opinions about the new Tools of War update that Darktide got last week. And if you're new here, I do this after I've had enough time with the new patch to fully understand it, so I can go over all the good and bad stuff that came with it. Then I update the tier lists and text guides, but I didn't finish the best perks and blessings in time, so those are going to be updated and upgraded in their respective class videos coming out in the next couple of days. And all the clips in the video are from High Intensity Shock Gauntlet on Damnation, with full VODs linked in the description beside everything else you're going to need. For now, though, I'm lighting this off with the good stuff about the update, and I do have to say the new modifiers added a lot of depth to maps that I've played hundreds of times and made them a lot more fun than I was expecting. Like Blackout Hunting Grounds is one of the coolest game modes that I played, and it turns it into more of a horror game that I get jump scared in pretty easily, so I honestly really love it. And the new Shock Gauntlet finally gave us a reason to metagame and min-max, and it adds that fun stressfulness that we really needed. It forces you to bring the right tools to deal with just an abundance of everything, and when a bunch of mutants spawn, you really have to clutch up. The only problem I have with it is someone decided to let the spaghetti-coated doggo out in full force, and I still think they need to remove the knockback when they leap, or just delete the original dog from the game and just use the new one that they made for hunting grounds. But outside of the desync doggo, the new Shock Gauntlet mode is one of the best things they've added to the game, and I'm just really happy with it. I have a ton of fun when I play it, and I think they need to keep adding more game modes like this. I said it last week, but the bug that causes endless poxwalkers, making some games get up to like 10,000 kills, is insanely fun, and it pressures you the entire game in a different way, forcing you into melee. So this is one of the ones that I really want to see added, and more monstrosities would be massive. If you've ever fought two at the same time, you know what I'm talking about and how crazy it gets, because fighting two beasts of Nurgle was one of the most memorable moments that I had, and it happened in like December. So I personally would love to see both of those bugs get added as real modifiers, more so the Poxwalker one, because it's just so insanely fun to do when it actually happens. And the new weapons they added make those kind of memorable moments even better. They open up a ton of playstyles and combos, so more weapons will always be welcomed, but it also means we need to update the Damnation focused tier list, and it does take me about 2 minutes to explain how I break down each of them, so if you're curious about why things are placed where they are, I link both of them in the description for you. But as a summary, it's how effective they are at controlling the flow of the game and actually winning. So we're starting with the Plasma Gun on the range tier list, and it has a whole bunch of new bugs, so we have to address them. Its former S tier was initially just to farm salt, and with a quick reasoning of averages, 97% of you figured it out and had a good laugh with me. And I do still think the Plasma Gun requires quite a bit of practice to use properly, but after the update, it got brand new features to stop it from shooting through a bunch of cover and walls that it used to be able to pen no problem, and a lot of the mobs will just be staggered jump sprinting out of your shots, making you think that you did no damage when the reality is you just missed because for whatever reason they need to have insane dodge mechanics on top of everything else. But even worse, a bunch of its blessings keep getting bugged out every hotfix, so either something's working one and then it gets broken the next, and it's just an absolute mess. So I'm dropping it down to B tier until Fat Shark fixes it, because even though it's a hot mess, it still manages to perform sometimes, and it's going to keep its D tier ranking for the low rollers. Then the Mark V Ripper Gun is moving up to S tier, and the Mark VI Ripper Gun is moving to B tier. Even after the can opener nerf, the Ripper Guns are still really good at tearing apart the entire map, and even though I dislike using the Mark VI because it doesn't have that full auto fun that the other two do, it's still not the worst, and I do go more in depth on them in the Ogre and Gigantus build video. But as for the heavy stubbers, I'm moving the Mark V down to A tier, and I'm moving the brand new slow firing one into the S tier. It's like an LMG sniper rifle that tears everything apart really quickly, and it's definitely taken a spot as one of my new favorite Ogren weapons. But the new SMG LMG, or whatever you want to call it, it shoots really fast, but the higher ROF doesn't exactly equate to more damage, and it's really only good on tight maps. Then the new fire shotgun is ridiculous, but that's probably because of the bug that lets it penetrate forever with the fire shots, making it absolutely an S tier weapon right now. But I think if we want to future-proof the tier list, it'll probably be closer to A tier once it gets fixed. And I've beaten a few high intensity gauntlets with it on my vet and zealot, and the only downside that I found was the low ammo count and the reload when things get tight. So if you don't use the weapon right, you will be inting with it, and that's even more true for the slug shotgun. If you misuse this thing, you're doing absolutely nothing, but it can blow back shields with its impact, and it one-shot Reapers with like barely any min-maxing, so even a mediocre roll can be good, and it can turn into a great sniper option. The only problem I have with both shotguns is they need to allow us to load full magazines of the special ammo, or just have a pop-up that's special or normal ammo that we can switch in between. There really isn't any scoreboard or leaderboards in the game, so there's no reason for them not to have a smoother fun element to them. So I think the slug shotgun is about B tier for now, and I know some people are going to disagree with that, but it's not as good as the fire shotgun in practice, and once you get into a higher intensity intensity game, you can clearly see the gap. So I do have a fire shotgun game posted, but I'll post a slug shotgun game in a couple of days. Then the old shotgun, I'm just going to leave at C tier, and I don't see a reason to use it over the other two right now other than to CC and get into melee, and the fire shotgun just does that better right now. Then one of the more important ones that needs to move up is the Shredder auto pistol. This thing performs on a level like no other, letting you use any mean build and the pistol will just carry it. Once you get good blessings on it, it gets about as much value as the bolter. So the Shredder auto pistol is probably one of just the strongest guns in the game right now, if not the absolute strongest. The only thing it can't do is kill crushers, which really isn't that big of a deal in most situations. But now we're going to talk about the Psyker Staffs, and the Void Strike remains in the S tier for the reasons we talked about before. And Purgatos is also back in S tier, and I know a lot of people were 50-50 on Wildfire, but it helps you roll stacks onto new targets, making ramping up your damage a lot smoother. And I was harsh on the Trauma Staff in the past because it can be easily misused by people that are new on it. I still think this thing requires a lot of practice to be good with, because most of the time new players with it are just knocking mobs around their teammates, getting them hit in the back, and that's really not a good thing. But I do still think that the Trauma Staff is about A tier now. I do think in a really good player's hands, the Trauma Staff is S tier. Then the good old Lightning Boy that carried Psyker for the first 2 months of the game is finally back in full force. It lets you safely stop bursters and mutants while melting crushers, and it's no longer just a support weapon. So I'm really happy to say that the Surge Staff is back at S tier. And just a secondary reason why all the staffs are so good is they don't eat any ammo, and that can make or break a game. If you're not eating any ammo, that's pretty much one of the reasons why Psyker is so good, on top of being able to pump out a ridiculous amount of damage after all its buffs. So that's going to be what the final range tier list looks like, and there's going to be a picture of it linked in the description for you as well. And now we're going to update the melee tier list. And just as a reminder, this was more based on my personal preference of animations, and if you want a full explanation, go check the main video out for it. So we're going to start with the shovels, and even though their sound effects are absolutely S tier, some of their blessings are still bugged, so I'm going to be dropping the vet and the Ogren shovels down to C tier until they get fixed, and then they'll probably move back up. Then the Mark II Tactical Axe is going up to S tier, and the Mark VII is going up to A tier. Then we have to talk about the brand new Ogren Bully Clubs, and the Mark III plays a lot like the Cleaver and is a really solid bonky boy that's going to make its way all the way to the A tier. And even though the 3B plays a lot like the Cleaver, I don't think it's as good as the Power Maul. If you're going to be bringing a bonk stick, that's the one. Then we have to talk about the Mark II Bully Club, and I really think that's a lot slower and clunkier, so it's going to end up in the C tier because I just don't think it's as good as the Mark I counterpart. Then the new Thunderhammer was supposed to be getting fixed, and in its current state, it's probably one of the worst weapons in the game, just for animation locking. The overall fluidity of the weapon just isn't there like the OG Thunderhammer, and after 3 games with it, I was about to pull my hair out. So I'm going to be putting the Mark IV Thunderhammer into B tier, assuming that it gets fixed soon, but it's a hard D tier right now with all of its current animation lockings. Then Psyker got the new Illis Blaze 4 sword, and it's an absolute monster, probably one of my favorite weapons in the game right now. It's basically a budget heavy sword and just rounded out the melee kit for Psyker completely. So this weapon is absolutely S tier. But I do know a lot of people love the new Wiener Force sword too. It's more of a single target and thrusty variant, but I don't like it as much as the Blaze. But I do understand how good it is, so I'm going to be putting it in the A tier. Then finally we have the new Power Sword, and this thing is just as good as the Mark III, but focuses on light attacks instead of heavies. And I've been using both a lot, and I'm starting to lean towards liking the 6 more, but either way, both get the job done, so I'm going to be locking the Mark VI into S tier as well. Both Power Swords are ridiculously strong and have amazing horizontal sweep combos that let you decapitate hordes and elites with no issues. So that's going to be the melee tier list fully updated. We'll just drag that guy right there, and it looks pretty solid. It is really hard to fit all these weapons on screen at the same time, so if it is looking a little weird after YouTube compression, I do have a link to the tier list in the description as well. There's going to be a small link, which is just going to be about the 1080p version, and then there's also going to be the massive 4K version of the image link there too. And the range spreadsheet will be updated after I finish the class guides, but I still think Wartide's calculator is way better because it lets you plug in weapons with your rolls on them for min-maxing. That way you can see if you can actually hit the breakpoints with what you have, instead of things being based off 80% rolls. But now we're going to talk about the comms link and some of the bad stuff or future stuff I think they need to do to revitalize the game and get it to the place where we want it to be. And with the comms link, we see that we can expect some sizable updates in the near future, but the main thing that needs to get focused on is the broken blessings. I'm not QA testing for them, and I'm not going to give detailed info about everything that's broken because it's a really long list and probably a 20-minute video by itself. So Fat Shark needs to do a full pass on every blessing for every weapon and every combination to fix a bunch of broken interactions, especially now since blessings are such a massive part of the game. And I'm going to keep bringing it up every week until they finally get it right. But again, they are hot fixing a lot of them week to week, so it's not a bad thing, and they are getting there eventually. But the biggest issue that we have right now is a lack of content with substance. I see a lot of people asking for new characters like Commissar, Ratling, or Skitarii, and they all have voice lines in the game right now, so any are a possibility and would be a huge addition, but I think subclasses should be rolled into current characters, like Commando Veteran being a good example. You should just be able to click your ultimate, swap it for whatever the new one is, and it just gives you new feats. That way you don't have to rebuy cosmetics and regrind the same weapons. It's not a game from 10 years ago, so they really need to think about going in this direction and make people happy, but I don't think a new character or subclass is going to change the fact that we're still on the same maps. And it's absolutely the biggest thing that needs to be added is just new things to play on. We were supposed to be getting a map a month, which seemed realistic to me with the current design of make a map, then have a second map use a portion of that level. And I took a bit of time to think about the amount of maps we would need to keep the game fresh and revitalize it. And off of how much I queue up, I think about 8 maps would be the perfect threshold. And by 8 maps, I mean 4 with intersections, and a good example is Enclave and Barrows and Comsplex share about a quarter of their map with each other. But other than that, I don't really have a lot of complaints anymore. They're communicating with the player base just fine now. It's really just about following through. And they also did a dev stream today to add this on here at the end. There was a striped cosmetic for Alaskan on their dev build. So I'm assuming there's going to be new skins, but I don't think they should add premium cosmetics yet. I know that like a lot of us that are playing the game are feeling pretty good about it and it's going in the right direction, but the majority of people still view the game and Fat Shark very negatively, and I'm not even viewing them positively yet. I'm still 50-50 on the fence if they're actually going to follow through on all this stuff. So my final thoughts about the Tools of War update are going to be that not only is it a great overall patch, it's a good step in the right direction to getting Darktide where it needs to be. But if we're walking forever, we're never going to get to our destination, and the player count reflects that statement directly. But as long as they keep the communication up, the consistent updates, and the weekly bug fixes rolling through, combined again with a real content update, I think the game will finally be what we all wanted by the end of April. So let me know what you think of the update. I personally think it is worth coming back to and giving it a try if you quit in December, just to try out some of the new combined modifiers. And don't forget to check the Discord out to keep up to date with what I'm doing. There's going to be some live streams coming up where I talk a lot about the reasons why I do stuff and can answer a lot of your questions better there. And if you want to support me a bit more, think about joining as a channel member. It helps me out quite a bit. But that's going to be all for now, and I hope you all have a great night. Wait, what? I've never seen this before.